Greetings and welcome to DORAGONS Domain, Episode 7. I am Doragon Kishu, Paladin and Dragon Rider. In this episode, I will be going over how I populated or filled the dungeon of Frost Realm, which lies beneath the ice fortress of Frost Realm. And also there are tunnels that lead to a giant cave that plays a part of the triangle, which is the giant cave, and the ice fortress and the large tower, which will have the Dark Knights, or the Knights of Dark Frost, rather. As I mentioned last time, I ended up drawing my own maps, and here's the map for the dungeon. The dungeon itself is 50 chambers, and it was quite a lot of work to build, to fill it, and obviously I didn't even go into the greatest of details, but a lot of these things that I'm doing, I'm setting up so that other people can, if they decide to use them, would like to use this as a foundation, and kind of they can add to it or change it. Like I said, it's a 50 chamber dungeon, and what I used is I used my Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master Guide and my Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual, and blended those two to fill it. Even though my current campaign is a 5e campaign, so far I've only purchased the Player's Manual for 5e, so I don't have any Monster Manuals or the Dungeon Master's Guide for 5e. The dungeon itself physically is one level, but what I did as far as the level of the creatures are between 1 and 6. So for each chamber, what I did is, first of all, I would determine if there was going to be a creature in that chamber, and only if I rolled a 1 or a 2 would I put a creature in there. And then if I would get a creature in there, I would roll 1d6 to see what level of creature, and then refer to the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master Guide, where there are charts for different levels of dungeons. So then beyond that, I also checked to see which rooms had traps randomly. Now, keeping in mind throughout, I mean, if there's specific things that I wanted to do, specific traps or specific creatures, I would just do it. But this is for the random part of it. And then, so like I said, the traps, I would roll a 1d6, which also, if I rolled a 1 or 2, there would be a trap. So there's as much chance of there being a monster as there is a trap. And also, but there's also the possibility of having both. Beyond that, in the AD&D Dungeons Master Guide, there are also charts for dungeon dressing. So, like, you know, things like benches or this or that, little pieces of fur or hair or moss or whatever, a damp floor. There's a couple charts I would refer to just to kind of give there a little more. And I would probably sweep through the whole thing, kind of, if I want to add any more than that. But there's also other charts, you know, with other things than just the general stuff. In the later part of the dungeon, towards the main area, I started to just put creatures. Now these, in some cases I would choose, but what I did is I wanted the final area of the dungeon to be a little more dangerous, so I started to roll level 7 creatures, level 8 creatures, a couple level 9 creatures, and a level 10. The cool thing about the level 10 is that I actually rolled a Beholder. And generally I'm a dungeon master, and I don't believe I've ever used a beholder. And even as a player, I don't think I've ever been in a dungeon where there's a beholder. And it's kind of a classic creature. I mean, you guys are probably like, oh, all the time, right? But not me. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to randomly roll a beholder, and I look forward to either being a player or being a DM at some point if I used Frost Realm myself. Just looking through the results. One of the things I had happen in this dungeon a lot was I would roll up a lot of parties randomly, which, you know, would include, you know, clerics and fighters, and so there's a lot of parties in this dungeon, and you figure they're doing this. They're there for the same reason you are, right? They're after the prize, whatever the prize may be. I did come up with a kind of a cool thing that I then decided I'm probably not going to say what it is about this dungeon. But however, anyone that wants to use Frost Realm, and that includes the fortress and the dungeon, or one or the other, if you just want to do one of them as a one-shot or as a campaign or whatever you want to do, I will give you all the material. So just contact me as far as that. And then I'll tell you this little aspect of Frost Realm that I decided not to put on the videos that I thought was kind of cool. But anyway, there are some, in some cases, there are reasons that this hidden thing is the reason that people are going after it, and there's also a twist to that. But yeah, so there's a lot of parties in the dungeon that are doing the same thing, so that could create some interesting, which means I have to roll up a lot of parties. In fact, once I really go through this thing and completely prepare it for myself, this is something that, like, if I'm to give materials for people to use it, I'd probably just let them roll up the parties that exist within the dungeon, as opposed to creating all of that myself. And I use this because it's going to take a long time. But there's things like, this room has torn sack, secret door, bugbears, subterranean lizards, large puddles of water, lots of weird traps. But you get the gist. So when I did the random creatures in there, they came from the AD&D book, Dungeon Master Guide. But on occasion, I would put some creatures that I also have in the Ice Fortress of Frost Realm. And also, the patrols that go through this dungeon are going to be completely made up of creatures that exist in the Ice Fortress of Frost Realm. So, and that includes a lot of different hybrid creatures like blue orcs or white orcs or frost gnolls, frost goblins. So basically, it kind of keeps that kind of overall Frost Realm theme into the dungeon without, filling it up with those creatures. Because those I thought it would be better to have some of the more traditional creatures actually in the dungeon. But like I said, it'll be patrolled by the Frost Realm creatures. This is my last Frost Realm video. It's my third. And there are other things that need to be done with this, but like I said, people that use it can do that stuff. But it will include the tower for the Knights of Dark Frost, and it will include the cave, which I'll put up. We came up with a name for the cave. Eric did, and the creature that's within it. But yeah, so this is the last video for Frost Realm, and I put out a poll that asking, the kind of content that might be coming up for DORAGONS domain, and people seem to be interested in story. The story in regards to campaigns. So I'm going to come up with some material for that, and I will be doing that in my next DORAGONS domain. The only thing that might happen is if one of my campaign updates comes first, but you guys are probably going to just kind of rotate between Dungeon Master content and 5e updates for my campaign. All right. Well, I appreciate you checking us out, and I will see you on Twitter.